Sangmin, an international student, rushed back to his home country after receiving a call from his parents. His childhood friend and neighbor, Bo-eun, came to pick him up at the airport. Bo-eun, a 16-year-old high school student, is 8 years younger than Sangmin. They've known each other since childhood and share a sibling-like bond. Sangmin appears to be a carefree playboy, unable to resist staring at pretty women. Even on the airport shuttle, he couldn't take his eyes off a passing flight attendant. Much to Bo-eun's disdain, the two bickered the entire way. Sangmin had specially chosen a gift for Bo-eun to celebrate their reunion.
자, 선물이야. 이거만 특별히 사왔으니까 식구들한테는 비밀로 해. 이쁘지? 딸기브라. 안에 뽕도 들었어, 두꺼운 걸로.
변태 맞구만.
입혀줄까? 입혀줄까?
맞을까?
As soon as they got home, they went to visit Bo-eun's grandfather. It turns out Sangmin's family and Bo-eun's family are longtime neighbors and friends. Sangmin's grandfather and Bo-eun's grandfather were war comrades with a brotherly bond. They had once agreed to marry their children to each other. However, since both grandfathers only had sons, the agreement was passed down to the next generation. Sangmin's grandfather has already passed away, and Bo-eun's grandfather is in poor health. He called Sangmin and Bo-eun back, hoping they would honor the agreement and get married, fulfilling his wish before he dies. However, Sangmin is still in college and not ready to settle down, while Bo-eun is just a 16-year-old high school student. Although the law allows marriage with parental consent for those over 16, neither of them has any concept of marriage and both are strongly opposed to it. Sangmin reconnects with his old friends and his close confidant, Ji-soo, a beautiful and gentle senior from the art department. Meanwhile, Bo-eun, at the age of first love, has a crush on her school's baseball player, Lee Young-woo. Seeing no progress in the marriage arrangement, Bo-eun's grandfather insists that both families cooperate fully while he pretends to be critically ill. Sangmin's father lost his temper and smashed a car in a fit of rage at home. Jokingly, Sangmin suggested to Bo-eun that they should get married when he picked her up from school, but she flatly refused. Just then, news came from the hospital that their grandfather was critically ill, prompting Sangmin and Bo-eun to rush to the hospital to fulfill her grandfather's dying wish. Bo-eun tearfully agreed to the marriage.
할아버지, 정신 차리세요. 할아버지 돌아가시면 안 돼요. 눈 좀 떠보세요, 할아버지. 할아버지, 결혼할게요. 결혼할 테니까 빨리 눈 좀 떠보세요, 할아버지. 약속 지켜드릴게요. 할아버지, 결혼할게요.
With that, the wedding was set. Bo-eun's mother, both heartbroken and consoling, tried to comfort her daughter. Meanwhile, Sangmin drowned his sorrows at a bar, watching the lively dance floor filled with beautiful women. His two buddies were flirting with everyone in sight. The thought of giving up his bachelor life for marriage nearly brought tears to his eyes. The wedding went ahead as planned. Sangmin looked dashing and Bo-eun was stunningly beautiful. They appeared to be a perfect match made in heaven, in front of their parents, family, and friends. 24-year-old Sangmin and 16-year-old Bo-eun officially became husband and wife. However, the first big event after the wedding, the honeymoon, was disrupted by Bo-eun. She secretly stayed behind while Sangmin flew alone to Jeju Island. That evening, Bo-eun returned home but, seeing the happy family photos, she couldn't bring herself to go inside and spent the night at a sauna instead. At the resort, Sangmin, bored and frustrated, resorted to pranks to pass the time. Bo-eun's high school principal, an old subordinate of her grandfather, organized a school trip to avoid raising suspicion about her absence due to the honeymoon. Sangmin ran into Bo-eun's friend, Haewon, who was on the island trip. Haewon, the only classmate who knew about Bo-eun and Sangmin's marriage, was puzzled to see Sangmin alone. In the chaos, Sangmin and Haewon accidentally fell together, just as their teacher, Miss Kim, happened to walk by. Sangmin quickly fled the scene. Meanwhile, Bo-eun, on a park date with her crush, Lee Young-woo, confessed their feelings and began dating. That evening, Sangmin encountered Haewon's group again. Haewon, seeing Sangmin flirting with other women, felt indignant on Bo-eun's behalf. Miss Kim, mistaking Sangmin for a troublemaker, gave him a punch. Returning alone from the honeymoon, Sangmin found Bo-eun staring at their family photo at the doorstep. Although filled with resentment, he said nothing. They pretended to be happy as they entered the house and, when asked by their grandfather, both lied that the honeymoon was great. Sangmin, drunk, carried Bolun to their room and passed out on the bed. With their parents' help, they got their own newlywed home. On the first night, Sangmin half-jokingly suggested they share a room, but Bolun firmly refused.
미쳤어 미쳤다.
뭐야, 좀 오빠 말 듣고 가만히 있어. 오빠가 너. 장난친 거네.
In the school cafeteria, Bolun confided a secret to her friend Haiwon. She was dating Lee Young-woo. Hearing this, Haiwon looked crestfallen, revealing that she too had a crush on Lee Young-woo. At a bar, Sangmin was hanging out with Jisoo and a few others. To assert his dominance at home, Sangmin boastfully claimed that his wife, Bolun, would come whenever he called. He then phoned Bolun, demanding she come over immediately. Bolun watched Sangmin drunkenly ramble, reaching the end of her patience. However, not wanting to cause a scene in front of his friends, she gently coaxed him to go home. In the car, Sangmin, still incoherent, kept muttering Jisoo's name, which deeply annoyed Bolun. Gradually, Sangmin and Bolun's life together began to develop a rhythm. When Bolun sprained her ankle at the supermarket, Sangmin immediately carried her home, just like they used to do as kids. In the kitchen, they engaged in playful cooking battles, and after meals, they played rock paper scissors to decide who would wash the dishes. Living like a typical young couple, neither seemed to realize that a subtle affection was starting to grow between them. One day, Sangmin accidentally saw Bolun on TV cheering for Lee Young-woo during a baseball game. The commentator emphasized their close relationship, mentioning they had shared a cozy sushi meal before the game. Feeling dejected, Sangmin sat on the sofa drinking in silence, waiting for Bolun to return home. Yet, he couldn't bring himself to confront her. Sangmin understood that his young wife was still just a high school student with a vibrant life at school. It was normal, and he had no right to blame her. Strictly speaking, their marriage was only to fulfill their grandfather's wish. Sangmin couldn't force or hurt Bolun, especially since they grew up together and were as close as siblings. At the gym, Haiwon turned her back on Bolun, accusing her of being selfish for having both a husband and a boyfriend. Her voice breaking, Haiwon tearfully confessed, "I like him too," before running off, biting her lip and lost in thought. Bolun realized that her actions might have unintentionally hurt those around her. At this crucial moment, her grandfather intervened again, arranging for Sangmin to become a student teacher at Bolun's high school through his connections. Sangmin felt conflicted. He didn't want to disrupt Bolun's high school life but was also unable to shake off his concern for her. In the principal's office, Miss Kim, eager to marry, recognized Sangmin as the handsome man she had encountered a few times before. Her eyes sparkled with interest when she learned he was the new student teacher. When Bolun saw Sangmin at the front of the class, she was stunned and felt wronged.
이번에 미술 과목을 맡은 교생 박상민입니다.
During a staff dinner, Miss Kim kept flirting with Sangmin, almost throwing herself at him, barely managing to escape Miss Kim and return home. Sangmin was confronted by Bolun, who demanded to know why he had started teaching at her school without a word. Feeling innocent, Sangmin promised not to reveal their relationship. The next day, Sangmin, suffering from an upset stomach after drinking, accidentally pulled out Bolun's underwear from his pocket, mistaking it for a handkerchief in class. Fortunately, Bolun quickly intervened to prevent their classmates from noticing.
자, 집중하자.
Miss Kim invited Sangmin to lunch in the school's outdoor cafeteria, attracting the attention and gossip of the students. Bolun felt uncomfortable and made sarcastic remarks to Sangmin. Perhaps unknowingly, Bolun had started to consider Sangmin as her husband. Naturally, seeing him laughing and chatting with another woman made her jealous. Sangmin, meanwhile, stayed in his room watching romantic films to gain experience, which seriously disrupted Bolun's studies.
그렇게도 좋냐?
아, 뭐 남의
즐거워?
취미 생활 갖고 왜 그래 진짜.
저 징글맞은 게
빨리
취미생활?
줘봐.
됐어.
문화 생활하는 거야. 빨리 줘.
동생 보기 부끄럽지도 않아. 공부.
As they argued, Miss Kim showed up at their home, somehow having found their address. Panicked, Sangmin and Bolun hurriedly hid their wedding photos, hiding behind the curtains. Bolun watched as Miss Kim nearly discovered her. Desperate, Bolun covered her head with the curtain and fled in a blind panic. In class, a female student teasingly asked Sangmin if he was a romantic Virgo. With a smile, Sangmin recounted how his first love was the only woman who visited him during his 3 years of military service, and she never knew how much he liked her. Bo-eun, feeling a pang of jealousy, muttered that it must be Jisoo, forgetting that she had once tried to visit Sangmin at the army base but had been turned away, leaving him a letter instead. Sangmin received orders to attend reserve training, and Bo-eun, in her school uniform, stood out as she brought him a home-cooked meal, only to find an older Navy officer giving Sangmin a hard time. Seeing her husband being bullied, Bo-eun assertively stepped in, identifying herself as his wife.
아저씨, 지금 뭐 하는 거예요?
야, 네가 얘 마누라라도 대뿐이야.
그래, 마누라다.
죄송합니다. 제 동생입니다.
빨리 뭘 숨겨? 야, 네가 뭔데 우리 오빠한테 그러는 거야? 빨리 사과해.
야, 보나.
That evening, a group of them went to karaoke. Sangmin sang I Love You more than anyone else, while Bo-eun sang I Still Don't Know Love, both songs mirroring the story of their lives. On the way home, Sangmin gently put his arm around Bo-eun. She resisted briefly but then complied. Their walk was interrupted by a couple of thugs who made inappropriate advances. Sangmin fought them off, while Bo-eun wielded a stick, leading to all of them being taken to the police station. The police officer, seeing Bo-eun in her school uniform, refused to believe that she and Sangmin were married and contacted their school. The principal and their homeroom teacher, Ms. Kim, came to vouch for them, revealing Sangmin and Bo-eun's true relationship to Ms. Kim. The school was preparing for an art festival, and Bo-eun's class was in charge of decorations. Ms. Kim, holding a grudge, assigned Bo-eun to decorate an entire wall by herself, an overwhelming task for one girl. Sangmin questioned this but Ms. Kim stood firm in her decision. At home, Sangmin pretended to be indifferent, saying there was nothing he could do to help without raising suspicion among her classmates. Bo-eun was furious, but Sangmin had already decided to help her complete the task in secret. Sangmin asked Haewon for help. As Bo-eun was painting the wall, another brush appeared beside hers.
나 레즈비언인가 봐. 왜 남자보다 친구가 더 좋지?
Haewon, with downcast eyes, softly spoke about understanding and forgiveness among friends. In that moment, their bond was reaffirmed, embodying the purity of their school days friendship. While Bo-eun and Haewon took a break, Sangmin worked on the wall, only to be discovered by a group of troublemaking girls. Sangmin's mother visited, and due to the rain, she stayed the night, forcing Sangmin and Bo-eun to share a bed. Sangmin fantasized about doing what married couples do but ended up gently singing Bo-eun to sleep and holding her close. The next day, Bo-eun and Haewon continued painting, but the results were rough. In the bathroom, they chatted, unaware that other girls overheard Bo-eun and Sangmin's relationship. Bo-eun complained about Sangmin not helping, while Sangmin was actually working overnight with his friends to finish the mural. Bo-eun's younger brother, eager to show off at the family gathering, secretly filmed his first attempt at asking a girl out. However, he accidentally captured footage of Bo-eun and Lee Young-woo's sweet date instead. Bo-eun, humiliated, ran away crying. Sangmin found her at their childhood swing set and, without any blame, reminisced about their times playing there, while Bo-eun felt overwhelming guilt and pain. That night, Bo-eun's mother gently recounted childhood memories, mentioning how Bo-eun always brightened up when Sangmin was around, and how he would protect and care for her more than her own parents. Jisoo called to reveal that Sangmin had been secretly helping Bo-eun with the mural every night, never letting her know. Bo-eun rushed to the hall and saw the mural Sangmin had finished, a boy pushing a girl on a swing under a tree. Memories of their childhood brought tears to her eyes. To give Bo-eun time to sort out her feelings, Sangmin moved out. Bo-eun's feelings grew more complex. She missed him when he wasn't around and found herself thinking about him often. In his room, she found his clothes stained with paint, their childhood photos, and a paper plane containing the letter she wrote to him 3 years ago during his military service.
참 이상해. 항상 옆에 있을 땐 오빠가 미워 죽겠더니 막상 옆에 없으니까 되게 보고 싶은 거 있지? 오빠도 그렇지? 그러니까 앞으로 나한테 잘해, 바보야. 감사합니다. 연애가 안 돼서 그런지 옆에서 오빠네 엄마 자꾸 우신다. 근데 이 편지 오빠가 받을 수 있을까? 받았으면 좋겠다.
Bo-eun realized that Sangmin's first love was her. On the day of the art festival, Bo-eun broke up with Lee Young-woo, realizing who she truly loved. At the festival, Sangmin, representing the student teachers, spoke on stage, but their relationship was revealed. Facing shocked students and teachers, Sangmin calmly admitted their marriage, explaining that Bowoon agreed to it only to fulfill her grandfather's wish. He urged everyone not to affect her school life, as she deserved to live like a normal high school student. Bowoon bravely stepped forward and confessed her love for Sangmin in front of everyone.
나 이제 어린애 아니야. 어려서부터 항상 오빠 내 곁에 있었어. 그래서 묘한 감정들 그런 거 잘 몰랐었는데 나 오빠를 사랑하는 것 같아.
Amid thunderous applause, Sangmin and Bowoon embraced tightly, bringing their story to a happy conclusion. Bowoon was fortunate to be Sangmin's first love. Despite his seemingly careless demeanor, he was a responsible and devoted husband. They had always cared for and depended on each other since childhood. Sometimes, familial love and romantic love can intertwine, can't they? See you in the next movie.